Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this webinar on the Rivanna River Restoration at Riverview Park. It's something all of us and all the members of the panel are really excited to talk about. Um, we're going to run through an agenda that I'll share with you in a moment, but we're going to have some brief introductions, and then each of the panelists who you see here will talk from their professional perspective about the project and what you can expect from it. We've reserved about a half an hour at the end for Q&A. So if you have any questions as we go along, please just note them because we will plan to return to them at that point. We'll plan to revisit them right around 6:55, 7 o'clock. But I think many, many questions will be answered by each of the panelists' presentations. So that's why we ask that you hold them until the end. Here you go. You see before you a poll, and I I see a lot of folks have answered so far. There are folks from all over, with most of the people who are joining the webinar from a nearby county, but outside of the city of Charlottesville. Right now, I'm showing 57% of participants are from other counties. But we all love Riverview Park, though a few folks have joined who have never yet visited, and I hope they have an opportunity to visit soon and enjoy it because, as all of us know, it's a beautiful park and provides the only public access to the Rivanna in the city of Charlottesville. So we're really excited, and let's get started. I'll introduce you to the panelists in the order that they are going to share their presentations. I think I should just end the poll because I'm afraid it might be showing up in the middle of people's screens. No, it's not. Okay. So Lisa Wittenborn, could you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, thanks, Elizabeth. Hi, everybody. Super excited to have you all joining us tonight, and really excited to share where we are on this project. We've been working on it for many years. My name is Lisa Wittenborn. I'm the Executive Director of the Rivanna Conservation Alliance, and we are the nonprofit partner in this public-private partnership project that we're moving forward. We've been kind of in it from the beginning and are coordinating some of the grants and some of the meetings and just kind of helping move things along from that perspective and doing the engagement with the community as well.
Great. Thanks, Lisa. Dan Frisbee.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us to learn more about this exciting project. My name's Dan Frisbee. I am a water resources specialist with the City of Charlottesville. Have been with the city for 22 years now and will be serving as the project manager for the project. I work on stormwater and watershed and green infrastructure issues for the city and have been in charge of some of these kinds of projects in the past. So really excited for this one and look forward to telling you guys more about it.
Great. Thank you, Dan. And one of my colleagues just told me I've neglected to introduce myself. I'm Elizabeth Clark. I'm the Director of Development and Communications at Rivanna Conservation Alliance, and very happy to be with you today. But let's move on to the folks who are going to be talking about the project. Kip, would you like to go next, please?
Yes, thank you, Elizabeth. My name is Kip Mumaw. I'm the principal engineer for Ecosystem Services, and we're a firm based in Charlottesville, Virginia. We're on Carlton Avenue, for those of you that might be familiar with the layout here in the city, and we specialize in stream and wetland restoration. And we work with partners such as the city and other municipalities around the state. And we've been working on this project with RCA and the city for many years now, and really happy to be here and share what we've discovered and kind of our plans moving forward. Thank you.
Great. And Mary?
Hi, everyone. I'm Mary Wolf. I'm with Josey Landscape Architects, and we are a local Charlottesville firm. Very pleased to be working on this project. I have a personal interest in that. I live in the Woolen Mills and visit the park almost every day, so it's I'm well loved. We are working on the landscape architecture component of the project. We're working alongside Ecosystem Services to reestablish trails throughout the park with the riverbank restoration, and also looking for opportunities to ways that we can facilitate more engagement with the river. So we're excited to share our plans with you.
Great. And Chris, I think Chris.
Hello.
Great.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hello, I'm Chris Genzik. I'm the city's Parks and Trails planner. I've been here 18 years with the city. I've lived here a lot longer. My role is public interactions. I'm developing the trail systems, both the paved ADA kind of transportation level trails and natural type trails like the Rivanna Trail Foundation. And I work with the Rivanna Trails Foundation, mountain bike, tree stewards, master naturalists, Rivanna Conservation Alliance, do a lot of that volunteer and nonprofit coordination. So I'm here on behalf of the Parks Department.
Great. Thank you. And I'm just going to let the poll wrap. I'm going to wrap up the poll, but where we ended up was about 40% of the respondents are from outside of Fluvanna. Outside of Charlottesville. And I'm just going to share the results. So you should see them here, but we have some folks who have never yet had an opportunity to visit Riverview, but people are really taking advantage of all the diverse recreational opportunities it offers. So that's wonderful. And now let's move on into the main presentations. Lisa.
Great. Oh, all right, thanks. I'm going to kick us off just giving a little bit of background on the project, kind of where this all came from, and the role that the community has played in helping us develop the design for the project. Can you forward? Thank you. All right, so just to give you a little context where the project is taking place, the project is happening in Riverview Park, which is the city's only public access to the Rivanna River right now. And from what I understand, is the most popular park in the city. It's located here where this green star is on the eastern side of the city, where the river is kind of running between Charlottesville and Albemarle County. And just to remind you, the Rivanna watershed is part of the larger James River watershed and the Chesapeake Bay watershed. So some of the water quality improvements that the project will be making are going to also benefit the James River and the Chesapeake Bay. And Dan will be talking with you more about those benefits in a minute. All right, so this project really got its start with a conversation that Kip Mumaw and I had many years ago now, back in 2019, standing in Dardentown Park. We were looking across the river at this area that was covered in riprap. And what had happened is that the riverbank had eroded significantly and exposed the sewer line that runs through there. The sewer line also runs through Riverview Park. And we were trying to figure out how to kind of get ahead of issues like this so we don't end up having a riverbank that's completely covered in riprap, which is not what anybody wants, I don't think. So we were able to obtain a small planning grant from the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation to predict erosion rates in a 5-mile section of the Rivanna River running along Charlottesville, and use that information and other data to prioritize places where riverbank restoration was needed and feasible. And coming out of that project, we selected a location where we wanted to try to pursue a project. And so we selected Riverview Park, and we selected it for quite a few reasons. Primarily because it will generate so many important benefits for our environment and our community, and also has the likelihood, and we've seen this come true, of bringing together a lot of partners and funders who are really interested in making this project happen. So the main benefits that we're going to see coming out of this project, and we'll go into all of these more later in the presentation, but just in a nutshell, the project will be protecting the land, trees, and trails in the park from erosion. We're seeing all of those things falling away, washing away every time we have a big storm. Riverview Park isn't a huge place, so we can't really afford to lose it, and we don't want to be in a situation where that erosion is going to continue unchecked into the future. The project will reduce a lot of water pollution, and Dan will go over some numbers with you. It will improve a lot of opportunities for recreation. So boating, wading, observing wildlife. I saw in the poll that was one of the things people said they like to do the most, is come to see nature in the park. And it will enhance habitat for the other creatures that like to use the park and live in the river and need a high quality environment. The project will also protect public safety. Right now, the banks are very steep and dangerous for people. And it'll protect existing infrastructure. Like I mentioned, the main sewer line for the city runs down along the river through the park here, and we don't want it to be exposed through erosion. Okay. Thank you. So after we selected Riverview Park as the place we wanted to try to make a project happen, we were able to obtain a second planning grant from the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation to put together a conceptual design for the project. And this really entailed two things. It started with a lot of technical analysis that was carried out by Ecosystem Services, and I think Kip will be sharing the results of a lot of that with you. We wanted to see what was really feasible to do in the park and along the riverbank. And then RCA led a lot of community engagement activities to try to figure out, first of all, if the community actually wanted this project to happen, because it's not mandated, it's a voluntary project. And if so, what the project should look like. What does the community really want to see in a restoration project? And once we had all of that information together with the technical analyses, we were able to pull in Josey Landscape Architects. We were very happy to have them come on board and pull that all together into a really lovely conceptual design for the park. So before I show you the design, I just wanted to share a little bit about what we heard from the community. We collected input from over 250 people. This was back in 2021, 2022. We had 2 different public meetings. We had a form that people could access online to share their thoughts and feedback. And we also had in the park at the kiosk right by the river a paper form. So anybody in the park could also contribute their ideas, thoughts, concerns to the project. And what we heard really loud and clear from almost everybody was that they really were excited about the potential for a restoration project in the park. And so we decided to move forward with it. And just to get into a little bit more of the detail of what we heard, the most important park features that people shared with us, the things they cared about the most, were the trails, having really safe river access points, maintaining a natural landscape and natural aesthetic in the park. And they really care about making sure that the river is clean and healthy. The things they wanted to see improved were to reduce erosion and stabilize the banks. They want to remove invasive plants and plant more natives, improve river access, reduce trash, and provide more opportunities for education and public awareness in the park. And the main concerns we heard were around the loss of trees, the desire to not have impervious surfaces near the riverbank, and to manage invasive plants better in the park. And some folks were concerned about the longevity of the project, so that's something that Kip can probably speak to. This pie chart is just an example of one of the questions that we had on the survey. So this question was around, do people prefer to have just one access point to minimize the number of things that are going down the riverbank, or do people prefer to have multiple access points that kind of cater to different uses in the park? And you can see that almost 70% of people wanted to see different access points. So that's one of the things that helped inform our design. All right, so here's just a glimpse of the conceptual design. Kip's going to walk through this really in detail, all the different features, but this is what we came up with. And last thing I'm going to talk about real quick is project funding. So since we submitted our first grant proposal to start the implementation of the project a few years back, the cost of the project has escalated just based on inflation and construction costs going up, not because of anything we're doing with the project, but right now we're estimating the total cost for everything, design, permitting, and construction, to be around $1.4 million. We were able to obtain a large implementation grant from the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation again to get us started. And then the city has come in with funding from the Stormwater Utility Fund, which is, I think, $250,000, so a large amount of money. The Office of Sustainability and the Department of Parks and Rec are also contributing. We have a nice large grant from the Virginia Stormwater Local Assistance Fund and from the Anne and Jean Worrell Foundation. And then we also have funding from Rivanna Water and Sewer Authority and some from the Rivanna Trails Foundation and RCA. So we have a nice collection of funders that are working to make this project happen. And now I think I kick it off to Dan to talk about, water resources.
Yeah, thanks, Lisa. And before I jump into my presentation, I just want to take a minute to say how thankful I am to be working with RCA on this project. We've been partnering on projects for over 20 years now and had the chance to work on a lot of impactful projects together, but I think this one is really the most exciting and significant one yet. And it simply wouldn't be happening without the countless hours of hard work that Lisa and the staff at RCA have put in and the resources that they're bringing to this project. So I just want to say on behalf of the city and really the entire community, thank you, RCA, for helping us make this project happen. Okay, Elizabeth, we can go to the next slide. Thank you. So I just wanted to start by talking about Charlottesville's water quality drivers, and will help kind of set the context for how we got to this project in particular. As you all know, Charlottesville is a historic city and it developed largely without the benefit of stormwater management. And so really the emphasis historically was on draining stormwater off the developed portions of the city into our creeks and streams as quickly as possible without a lot of foresight into what the impacts on our receiving waters might be. And so as the city developed with more and more hard surfaces and more stormwater generated and being sent to our streams, we started seeing major impacts to our urban stream network. And that comes in the form of highly eroded stream banks and incised stream channels with really poor aquatic habitat for aquatic life. So both the Virginia Department of Environmental Quality and RCA run water quality monitoring programs, and their data show that a lot of the streams in Charlottesville are officially impaired and in need of restoration. So when data show this, it kicks off a process of a water quality study that tries to ascertain what are the sources of the impairment to a waterway, and then also come up with a cleanup plan. Some of you maybe have heard the acronym TMDL, or total maximum daily load. That's the cleanup plan that comes along with the impaired waterway. And so in the city, we have several streams that fall in this category: Shanks Branch, Lodge Creek, Pollock's Branch, Meadow Creek, and Moores Creek, and the Rivanna River. All are impaired waterways with TMDLs and cleanup plans associated with them. So then in 2003, the city was issued its first municipal separate storm sewer system permit, or MS4 permit, our stormwater discharge permit. And with that permit from DEQ comes a lot of commitments and responsibilities and actions required. which required us to put together a stormwater management program that I'll talk a little bit more about. But then finally, I just want to mention that the city also has lots of formal commitments to sustainability and water resources protection, including in our strategic plan and our comprehensive plan, and as evidenced by the creation of what used to be the Office of Environmental Sustainability and now is just the Office of Sustainability. And you can go to the next slide, please, Elizabeth. So all of that led to, in 2014, the establishment of the Water Resources Protection Program and the adoption of the stormwater utility fee to provide a stable and dedicated funding source for the program. The purpose and the goals of the program are to comply with federal and state stormwater regulations, to rehabilitate the city's aging stormwater drainage system, to address drainage and flooding problems, and to pursue environmental stewardship and water quality improvement projects. Next, please. And so when we talk about compliance with stormwater regs, we're mainly talking about that MS4 permit that the city holds from DEQ. And with that permit is the requirement to develop and implement a comprehensive stormwater management program that includes elements of public education, outreach, and involvement, finding and eliminating illegal discharges into our stormwater system, having a program in place to manage stormwater from active construction sites, as well as managing stormwater on sites after they've finished development, and then also looking at our city operations and finding ways to reduce pollution generated from our city operations. The permit also calls for the development of action plans for these impaired waters that we have that specify ways in which we are going to reduce pollution in those streams and hopefully help to restore them back to a healthy state. And so we have action plans for all of those waterways that I mentioned, as well as for the Chesapeake Bay, since Charlottesville falls within the Chesapeake Bay watershed. And specifically, we're talking about reductions of the pollutants sediment, phosphorus, nitrogen, and bacteria. And so how do we come about making those reductions? It's really largely through stewardship projects, green infrastructure and ecosystem restoration projects, a few of which that we've completed over the years I show on this slide. And that can come in the form of a vegetated roof on the City Hall building, stormwater wetlands that we installed in Azalea Park, or stream restoration like we completed last year on a tributary of Shanks Branch in the Botanical Garden of the Piedmont. These projects all have quantifiable pollutant reductions associated with them. And now that brings us to this project, the Rivanna Restoration at Riverview Park, which will continue to provide us some of those pollutant reductions that we need in order to meet our MS4 permit requirements. And so just wanted to give you a little bit of a feel for what our requirements are and the impact that this project will make towards meeting those requirements. And so on the chart on the top there, I'm showing the combined pollutant reductions that are required through the Chesapeake Bay and the Rivanna River TMDLs. You'll see over 3,000 pounds of nitrogen per year, almost 700 pounds of phosphorus per year, and over 400,000 pounds of sediment per year that the city is required to reduce. And so we look at the Riverview project, our estimates show 161 pounds of nitrogen will be removed, which is about 5% of our overall requirements, 145 pounds of phosphorus, 21% of those requirements, and then the really impressive one is sediment or total suspended solids, almost 172,000 pounds of sediment estimated to be reduced by completing this project, which is a whopping 43% of the overall reductions that the city needs to make. So I think that illustrates just the importance of this project, really from the water quality side of the house. And there's a whole host of other and ancillary benefits that come with this project that some of my colleagues on the project team are going to talk about. And now I'm going to pass it over to Kip, who is going to speak in a little more detail about the river and outfall restoration components of the project. Kit?
Great. Thank you very much, Dan. We can just jump right in here. I'm going to try and go through what we've observed over our involvement in the project in terms of how the river corridor within Riverview Park has changed. As Lisa mentioned, we looked at that 5-mile urban corridor early on as an assessment of the riparian conditions and the erosion rates. And so I want to give a bit of a background and kind of what we're seeing. So the river, for those of you that have visited the park before, it's fairly obvious. We can see that riverbank erosion that's occurring. And really what we observed over this period of time during the assessment and the design of the project is the main factors affecting erosion is we see what we call kind of toe erosion or erosion at the base of the bank. When we have heavy storms, that energy is concentrated at the toe of the bank, and then it destabilizes the entire stream bank. And then we see trees collapsing or large amount of soil kind of eroding into the stream bank. And so we're seeing this process take place even over the period of assessment. And so we want to look at kind of what is creating the situation and how we might be able to intervene in a way that is going to accomplish the goals of the project. You can go ahead to the next slide. And so, of course, we need to look at the riverscape in its context. And I like this quote from Ellen Wall. She's a researcher out of Colorado State University. And the quote is, "Rivers exist in a rich and complicated context that reflect fluxes of matter and energy between the river and the greater environment, as well as the history of these fluxes." And I like this because it really speaks to the need to look at not just the specific stream or river bank, but we need to look at the watershed, and then we also need to look at the history of the watershed and how things have changed over time. And go to the next slide. And so, of course, we don't have aerial imagery before 1937, and it's great that we have this aerial imagery of 1937 to kind of look at the conditions out there. But we know something about the watershed and changes that were likely occurring in the watershed. So at Riverview Park, the watershed is 468 square miles. It is mostly agricultural and forested. We have approximately 3 to possibly 5% impervious cover in that watershed. And pre-1937, we would have expected to see a lot of agriculture and forestry activity, logging activity in the watershed. And that can have impacts downstream. We see that in 1937, the corridor within Riverview Park, which is kind of the yellow outline there, and the blue outline is the riverbank or an approximation of the riverbank. Don't pay too much attention to how that shifts. Aerial imagery isn't precise when we're going back to these time periods. But what we see is largely on the west bank, or what we commonly refer to as the right bank, if we're looking downstream, is that the riparian area is really sparsely covered with some trees, but it's mostly deforested. We see some of that forest coming back and then being removed again, 1966. And then we start to see more development, and that is occurring throughout the watershed. Roads being built, houses being built. 1980, you can see larger development in the area, but we're looking at kind of the changes through time. Of course, we also had the Woolen Mills Dam downstream of this, and then its removal in 2007. And so we're trying to take all those considerations into what we're observing in the river and how things are changing. Go to the next slide. And so what we're trying to do is look at what sort of changes, how is the river adjusting to these watershed changes and the changes within the corridor? And so here you can see a cross-section view, like we're standing in the river looking at the river bank, and the red line there is in 2017. And you can see in 2022, we see about 6 feet or so of bank retreat at the toe of slope. In other words, the lowest elevation there, kind of the edge of the stream bank if you're standing in the river, and then about 4 or so feet of retreat in at the top of bank. And so we see this. It's not consistent. This is representative, but there are areas that erode more, and there are areas that erode less through this corridor. We can go to the next slide. And the downstream kind of portion of Riverview Park, some of you may have seen a stormwater outfall. So we wanted to look at that too, because we see that it is eroding considerably. And so you can see in 2017, it was more of a swale. This is looking, say we're standing in the river looking upstream at the outfall. You can see that it's dropped in elevation almost 10 feet there between 2017 and 2022. And so that is a considerable amount of sediment and associated pollutants washing downstream. And that is moving. And for those of you that have been out, you've seen how this then migrates upstream, and we're losing more and more sediment. We're losing more trees in that area as well. And now let's look at some pictures of what this looks like, and not just graphs of surveys. And so this is from the river looking at this riverbank of Riverview Park. And you can see here kind of that eroded condition and some of the trees that are compromised. Go to the next slide. And there are many instances of this where a lot of the soil behind and around root systems of trees have eroded over the years. And many of these trees, even during the study period, ended up falling into the river. Go to the next slide. Oftentimes when we're in the park and looking from kind of the landward side, everything looks like, well, it's probably okay, and we do appreciate the function and benefits that these trees are providing. And then if you go to the next slide, we look from the riverside, and we can kind of see that retreat in the bank occurring, and those trees being undermined. Go to the next slide. And here we see another instance of this. We wouldn't think anything is concerning. We go to the riverside, and we see that this tree, another large storm event may result in this tree falling into the river. Next slide. This is a picture of the outfall. There's a small bridge. This is an older picture. If you go out to the park now, this has eroded considerably even during our assessment and design process. But you can see some of the trees that are falling into the gully here. Go to the next slide. See another angle of that, and just the massive amount of erosion that's occurring in this. The mechanics are a bit different of the outfall versus the riverbank. The outfall has about 20 acres draining to it. Not too significant of a drainage area, but that combined with when the Rivanna increases in water level, and we have a really big flood, and the water comes into this gully and up onto the floodplain, and then as it drains, it washes away a lot of that sediment. We call this a head cut, and it kind of migrates upstream and kind of continues to get worse. And just upstream of this, and the same is true for the riverbank, there is a sanitary line that runs through here. So as Lisa was mentioning, we want to make sure that we're protecting that infrastructure, and that we're being proactive to this issue and not reactive to it. And go to the next slide. And so I've talked a little bit about kind of the conditions in Riverview Park. And so what our restoration approach is, and we'll kind of get into the elements of that restoration, is we really want to expedite recovery of the riverbank and the outfall. And so we're observing what's occurring in the river corridor, and we're looking at how we can basically take what's occurring and expedite that forward in time to a stable condition and remove that sediment from impacting the river and even the James River and then the Chesapeake Bay. And to do that, we are looking at numerous different methods to halt that erosion process. And part of that, though, is removing some of those trees that are on the riverbank. And so we have 89 trees currently proposed to be removed. And then as part of this project, though, we want that a healthy riparian forest, and we want healthy trees protecting that riverbank after the project. And so we're planting 254 trees, we're planting 520 shrubs, and then we're planting almost 13,000 herbaceous plugs. And these are all native plantings that will help protect and improve the condition of the riverbank. Go to the next slide. Now we'll walk through some of the elements, and the project really extends upstream to the power line crossing, if some of you are familiar, but we wanted to kind of just focus on the Riverview Park for the conceptual plan here, so you can really see the details of it. And so there's a handful of practices, and we kind of go through them from upstream to downstream. And so the first is stream bank restoration, and this is occurring upstream to the power line cut through. So we can go to the next slide. And here again is a cross section of that. And what we're seeing again is the river is widening and that slope is unstable. And so what we want to do is kind of anticipate that by removing soil, establishing a stable bank, and then planting it with vegetation to protect that stream bank. And so we're removing some of that material that you can see here, and then planting it along with providing kind of a reinforced toe protection. And so there will be more kind of larger boulders placed at the toe to help prevent that erosion from taking place. Go to the next slide. And this is not a new type of practice. Our firm has done this type of project in numerous different locations. The largest probably of which is the South Fork Shenandoah River in Elkton. Encourage folks that are in that area to stop by and see that project. There's a public boat launch just downstream. But you can see here the conditions prior to restoration on the left-hand side, and then post-restoration. This is right after construction. This area is not a publicly used park per se in the same way that Riverview is. So the post-restoration conditions are a bit different, but you can see just that low angle, bank angle there, and a lot of vegetation coming in. Go to the next slide. Another project, Linville Creek. You can see the conditions on the left-hand side, pre-restoration, and then the post-restoration. This is just 1 year after construction, and you can see kind of the baseball field fence in the background in both photos there. Go to the next slide. And so not only are we trying to provide a stable bank through vegetative practices and a more stable bank angle, but we're also looking at putting these in-stream structures. And so these structures help deflect water away from the bank. Sometimes they're called river training structures. And this will help protect the bank as it starts to mature and vegetation starts to mature. and and thereafter it will still help kind of deflect the flow into the center of the channel and away from the restored stream bank. You can go to the next slide. That same project, we employed a similar technique, and you can see on the left-hand side that pre-restoration. On the right-hand side, you can see these rock veins where the picture was taken, and then upstream. These are much larger than what will be used at Riverview Park, but still is an example of how they deflect flow into the center of the channel. Go to the next slide. This is one on Elk Shoals in North Carolina. Maybe a better analog for the size of the structure. They do provide kind of an opportunity to engage with the river and walk down. You can go to the next slide. And we're doing, through the design process, a lot of modeling to make sure that we're placing them in the right location, that they're achieving the benefits that we're interested in. So at low flow, that you will see these structures, and as the flow increases in stage, like the picture on the right, is kind of looking from above, and you can see some of those velocity vectors, how it turns the water away from the bank and towards the center of the river. Go to the next slide, and here's a brief video kind of showing that process, and you can see kind of the lighter colored flow in the middle of the river, and that's really showing where the higher energy is and showing that these structures can have an impact on where that energy is directed. And so it keeps it away from the bank and allows the stream bank vegetation to grow and not really have to fight some of those larger storm events. We can go to the next slide. There we go. So the floodplain bench area, and this is kind of directly in the center of Riverview Park here, down just towards the river from the playground, if that's a good landmark. And here we're able to, because the sanitary sewer kind of goes away from the river, we're able to excavate a bit more and provide better access to the river for more engagement there. This is one of those access points that Lisa was mentioning, in addition to an upstream and downstream access point. And so here we're providing a bit more flood relief during smaller events, and that will also kind of help the river from an energy standpoint, and provides a more accessible route to get close to the river and enjoy it. You can go to the next slide. You can see some smaller examples of this, tributary to Meadow Creek. You can see on the right-hand side there a floodplain bench that was excavated out and allows the creek to flood in that area. Here it's being planted with a lot of river birches. You can go to the next slide. This is a tributary to Ivy Creek, and you can see a similar situation on the right there, where we're trying to give the creek some space to flood, and you see this kind of level area where you can approach the creek. The Outfall restoration here, you can go to that's on the downstream end of the project. Some fairly dramatic projects here that we've done. And again, here we're just trying to step the water down more gradually to the Rivanna. You can see on the left, the erosion, on the right, kind of these rock steps that gradually step the water down during flood events. Go to the next slide. Another example of this was right after construction. You can see those rock cascades that are placed in that gully to help transition downstream. Go to the next slide. And this is more of a mountain stream, but that is what we're trying to emulate, is how these mountain streams transition naturally. And though this outfall will not be flowing year round, you can kind of see how the hydraulics work in a photo like this of Baldwin Branch. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mary Wolf.
Great, thank you, Kip. As I said before, we've been working on reestablishing the pathways through the park and looking at ways that we can re-engage with the river. The next slide. So this is a site plan of the sort of the perspective that you've been looking at. This shows some of the new key features, which I'll talk about in other diagrams, but essentially we're creating a new entrance path to the park, sort of south of the existing south entry. We're creating several stair accesses down to the park, as well as a gently graded path down to the river in front of the playground. So down to sort of a bench area for swimming. Next slide. These are some of the starting images that we were looking at when we were beginning the design. These were based on community input. So we're looking at obviously restoring the riverbank, providing access to the river using natural materials, providing seating by the water, celebrate the riparian landscape, improve circulation in paths, and increase native planting. So those are things we kept in mind as we began the design. Next slide. This is an aerial of the site. You can sort of see the playground and the river for reference. One of the key driving forces of where we relocated the main path along the river was to align with the existing sewer line, working within a 50-foot easement around that line. So since this area has to remain clear for maintenance, it is a good strategy for relocating the path. So if you go to the next slide, you can see the sewer line here sort of relative to the existing paths and riverfront. So, it's really skirts the edge of the existing path. Just to sort of show you some of the key aspects of the design, we're working with about 900 feet along the river. At the south end, a new boat launch extending all the way up to the power line cut where the power line goes across. So we're creating, this diagram really shows sort of the new circulation. We're creating a new primary pedestrian entrance to the south. The existing south entrance will then be reconfigured to go to the playground, and then the existing north entrance will remain and connect to the new path. So the new trail in the dark gray is, you can see kind of meandering through the sewer easement. There are paths extending off of the main path in brown, and those are either mown trails or silt paths or walkways that are maintaining sort of a natural pathway experience, similar to what exists now at the park. There are 2 access stairs down. Well, I can show you this and if you back up. Here we are. So this diagram shows some of sort of the main activity zones. The purple squares along the river show access steps down. The 2 on the left side are steps down to a beach area. Further north is one right at the power line cut. To the south, there'll be a wood stair, new boat launch access. There will also be at the main entrance to the path will take you to the river walk or to an overlook area overlooking the river. The existing north entrance will lead you directly to a gentle path down to the river for swimming and recreation, as well as there'll be a set of stairs there as well. So next slide. So these are some images of how we see the paths. There'll be, paths through the woods. The main entrance path will be a straight path out to the river. We're envisioning it, we're calling it an arboretum LA, thinking that it's going to be planted with larger trees to really emphasize the entrance. And these will be a variety of native species that could potentially be labeled. The paths through the park, through the main center area of the park will be similar to the middle image. There'll also be behind the playground a low berm, which will be used, which will be built from some of the soil excavated from the bank, but it'll make a nice seating area and overlook for the river. The paths will be planted with native planting, and the middle image, native tree LA, a variety of species. And the path will be about 9 feet wide, so allowing for similar, it's a little wider than the existing path by 1 foot or 1.5 feet, still allowing for bicycles and pedestrians. Next slide. So talk a little bit about the planting. In the main area of the park entrances, we're envisioning in the light green, it's still going to be sort of an open lawn and tree area. We'll be adding where the new entrances, we'll be adding the LA walk trees as well as several other understory trees. As you move along the river bank, there'll be all the slope planting that Kip has talked about, as well as then planting on the other side of the path, on the west side or the inland side of the path. So we'll be really adding to the existing forested areas as much as we can. And adding a few sort of larger trees along the slope planting as well. Next slide. So as Kip said, we're planting, well, in our plans, not along the riverbank, we have 164 trees. Then there'll be an additional 90 along the riverbank. We're working with all native species, most of which are already seen along the riverfront, introducing a few that aren't as seen readily. So this is a list of the species. I don't want to go through all of those, but those are available to see. And then we'll also be planting, if you go to the next slide, 257 shrubs plus 161 along the river banks. So again, variety of native species that are pretty common along the river banks. There'll also be, we'll be doing a lot of plug native understory ground cover, plug planting, and seeding. So we really are doing everything we can to reestablish trees and shrubs and ground cover, along the areas that are disturbed. We are also very cognizant of trying to maintain as much shade as we can on the trail. So we have been working around existing trees as much as possible, and we will, when the project starts, we will lay out the trail, have it staked out, and if there's anything we've missed, we will try to realign the trail to some degree to preserve it as much as we can. So that's foremost in our thinking in terms of how this path was laid out. And I will turn things over to Chris.
Thank you, Mary. This is Chris Genzik. I'm the Parks Planner for the city again. And this project has come in, which is wonderful. It's providing a lot of environmental benefits. And also, like people have mentioned, it will provide easier access down to the riverfront from the main playground area of the park with the terracing and the sloping back of that, what's now effectively a small cliff. It's not very easy to get down there and back up. So you can go to next slide. There's a number of things going on in the park that are separate from this project, but are related to the project. We have one thing I forgot to put in my slide. There is a restroom building that's proposed. I think it got hung up in the contractor phase. It was supposed to be built reasonably soon, but it will still happen. I need to talk to the project manager about that. We are looking at some conceptual plans for the parking, the access, and the circulation. It does get quite crowded down there. The fire department, EMS has some issues. The boat trailers have issues. There's some muddy spots people are parking in. So that will be a very public process. We are in the beginning stages of the conceptual sort of engineering, and we'll certainly come to the public to talk about that. What we're trying to do is make sure the access, circulation, and parking is functional without expanding it so much, or paving over the park and doing that sort of thing, because we need to balance the goals of keeping it natural and keeping it functional and keeping it safe, because it is quite popular. We are excited that Zero High Street has come online. That will take some pressure off of Riverview, but Riverview will still need to function the way it does. So that process is about a year behind the restoration process due to some grant deadlines and things. So we've made no decisions. It will certainly be very public as we discuss that. There's a discussion about trying to separate the boats and the trailers from the main part of the park so that they don't have to come all the way in and try to do 27-point turns when there's children running around and other people trying to park. So part of that is an attempt to maybe provide two different areas in a sense for that. And also the fire department and the EMS has a lot of problems when they get in there, and it's really jammed up on a quite busy day. So the idea is to get through the design process and the public input for that this year so that we can put a funding request in for the following year and do that sort of whatever comes out of that, we can do it soon after this project here is done. There is the idea that a new, I think it's been mentioned, that there'd be a separate area for boats and kayaks to go in and out that doesn't preclude pedestrians, but it means we don't have people in kayaks and tubes going up and down the same set of stairs that you've got young children and families trying to just sit and enjoy the riverfront. So this project offers a great opportunity for that. We also will continue our invasive plant control and landscape management in the park. We're going to do some invasive management in the area right at the entrance down towards the river where the circle of rocks is right now. A lot of the trail heading upstream has been managed pretty well for invasives. There's more to do, but the area downstream of the playground has a good section that's pretty overgrown. So we're going to try to do that this year with the money that council gave us for invasive management. And there was one other thing I was going to mention, but it's not coming to mind. So, but I am available to discuss things related to park planning that might be separate from the project that's going to happen here on the river, which we are very excited to do.
All right, I think this is back to me. Just to wrap up, thanks to everyone for sharing all that information about the project. We'll move into questions next, but I just wanted to provide a little bit of, can you go back to thank you, a little bit of information about our expected timeline to get the project actually constructed. We are still in the process of obtaining the final permits that we need to move forward. That will be wrapping up over the next couple of months. Later in this year, we will be putting out a solicitation for the construction contractor that's going to be running through the city's procurement process. And then construction is planned for late winter into spring 2026. So our goal is to have this all wrapped up in time for the community to be back at the river in the summer next year. And we are going to answer lots of questions coming up, but if you would like to learn more in person, we have 2 more walk and talk events taking place in the park. They're on Sunday evenings. One is on September 21st, which I believe is focused on trails, and one on October 19th, and they're both from 5 to 6 p.m. We just meet at the kiosk kind of down by the river. And we also have a project webpage. If you just go to RCA's website, rivannariver.org, and look under restoration, you can navigate to it, or you can email me at at rivannariver.org if you need some direct interaction on the project. So I think we're going to move into the Q&A section. Elizabeth, are you going to explain how that is going to work?
I've got one more thought to add, if I could. This is Chris. During construction, the main part of the park with the playground is going to be closed off. We will definitely allow, if you go on the trail, there's a riverfront trail, and then there's the other one that goes off the cul-de-sac with the power line on it, and then you tie back into the main river trail a little bit upstream of there. That trail is going to remain open through the parking lot all the way out to the corner of Riverside and Chesapeake, so that pedestrians, bicycles, and all that will be able to still access the trail, just not the riverfront trail. But I believe the parking and a lot of the amenities within the main part of the park are not going to be accessible during this construction window, partly why we're doing it in the wintertime, but we're going to make sure the trail is still functional. Whatever they fence off, they have to leave a stretch of that asphalt through the parking lot open all the way to the cul-de-sac so people can still use that. So just to keep that in mind. Thank you.
Great. And if you have questions, I believe at the bottom of your screen there should be a little line that says Q&A, and you can write questions there, and we will see them, and I'll direct them to folks on the panel. The first one that I've seen is, will there be any changes to the playground equipment? That sounds like a question for Chris. Is that right, Chris?
Yes, I will ask that question. I would believe, does it even get taken down during construction and then we would reassemble it? I will ask Two Bears, who is our playground expert and our parks division manager, if we intend to change any of those features or simply replace them as is once the construction's over. So I can post that answer to this group, or if the person asking it wants my contact specifically, I can share that so I can get that answer for you.
And I can just mention here that as part of the project, no changes to the playground specifically will be occurring or proposed for this project. And the intention is to have any construction equipment and any of the work being done in the interior of the park to avoid that area.
And then I have, please repeat dates for the walk and talk. So, let's go back. So the Lisa, I'll let you repeat them, though I've returned to the slide.
Sure. There's one on Sunday, September 21st, and another on Sunday, October 19th, both starting at 5 p.m., and they tend to run about an hour.
Other questions? Okay. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, because I think it'll make it easier to see everyone's questions. Will there be a pedestrian bridge? Chris.
I was a participant in the project through the Thomas Jefferson Planning District Commission, which I used to work at. to site a pedestrian bridge across the Rivanna, if that's the question. At that time, the conclusion was to put it over at the end of Market Street near the woolen mills, not directly into Riverview Park, because it would have been a lot of fill and things. So there was a community discussion. They landed on a concept. They did some preliminary design engineering to get a cost estimate, and the cost estimate was quite high. I think it was more than 10 million. And they have not yet, I believe, applied to take that to the next step and attempted to fund the actual construction. So there is a reasonably well thought out and public inputted plan for a bridge over the river. It's kind of in the hopper, but I don't believe it has been submitted and is on the agenda yet for any known funding source to get it started. Again, I can answer that question directly if somebody wants my contact, because I haven't heard any news about it in about 3 years, because it hasn't gone any further than what was done 3 or 4 years ago. But it won't be in Riverview Park the last we ran through all the processes.
And I've received a question. Thanks, Chris. I've received a question about showing a trail alignment slide again. And rather than go back through that, I wonder, are we going to make this, is this slideshow going to be available at the conclusion of this? Will we be making it available on our website or elsewhere, Lisa?
Yes, we certainly can. And also, once we have final approval on the plans, we'll be putting those up on the project webpage as well. But yes, we can post the slides. We are also recording this webinar, and we'll put it on RCA's YouTube page as soon as we can do that.
And
And Tommy, I think that question was from you. Happy to talk with you about the trail alignment anytime.
This is a question for Kip. How many rock veins are necessary to slow current velocity?
Great question. We cited three initially, and we did a fair amount of hydraulic modeling to kind of see the effects of it. And so we ended up eliminating one of them because we weren't really seeing any effect. And the riverbank, and this was the one that was on the downstream end near the outfall. We actually saw a fair amount of deposition adjacent to the channel in that location. And the modeling kind of confirmed that. So we stuck with the two rock veins, one just upstream of kind of the bench or beach area that we've been calling, and then another one at the start of the project to push that energy out into the center of the river.
And then for Dan, are there sufficient control measures, such as dog fecal disposal bins, to prevent bacterial growth?
I can't speak to this particular park and what is there or not. Chris may know, but I will say in general, people leaving dog waste behind is definitely an issue that we see all across the city and along our trail networks. And it is a significant contributor of fecal bacteria. And when it's left out, it does get washed into our streams and the river when storms occur. And a lot of our streams in the city are impaired for excessive bacteria. So it's definitely an issue that we try to work on from a public education standpoint. I know our parks group just recently, actually this year, put a lot of signage out at various parks, encouraging people to pick up after their pets and dispose of the waste properly. So that's definitely something that we can take a closer look at here at Riverview and make sure we have sufficient facilities available to be able to facilitate that. Thanks for that question.
Thank you. And one person notes that they didn't catch all the details around the parking changes. Can someone, I'm guessing Chris repeat info about plans to address access to park and current parking limits?
Certainly, we're aware of the busyness and somewhat mayhem that goes on in the parking lots that gets jammed up. And again, our proposal that's currently going to have some public input and design concepts is we're not trying to dramatically expand the parking. We might put a few more spaces where there's muddy spots now that people are parking, and we may do a turnaround for the boat trailers. But that's none of those decisions have been finalized. We're going to run it through a lot of public input. And the goal, again, is to make it better, but not expand the parking so much that you ruin the park and pave everything over. We just want to do some tweaks and some minor changes and add maybe like a half dozen parking spaces or so. We did it at Tonstor Park recently without really expanding the footprint of the current parking area, just by doing some things within it that made it more functional. So to the question, no decisions made. There'll be a process to run through some options, make a decision, and then ask council to fund it and construct it.
Great. And I think that's it. I don't see any more questions. Like to, Lisa, would you like to say a few words? Wrap it up?
Sure. And if you have more questions, type them in as I'm talking because we are scheduled to go till 7:30. So we can stick around if there's anything else you want to know about the project. But again, I just want to say thank you to all of the partners working on the project, Ecosystem Services, Wolf Josey, especially the City of Charlottesville. We came to you with kind of a community-driven project, and it's been very exciting to see the city get on board in a big way and really making this happen. So we are thrilled about this getting so close to reality. It's going to be very exciting to see it happen, and just want to thank everybody for your interest and support. And there's definitely a lot of ways to learn more. So just reach out. Would anybody else like to jump in and say anything?
And we did receive a question while you were speaking, and it's a lengthy question. So, and I'm not quite sure who should answer it. So I'll say it. Someone asked they'd be interested to know if anyone on the project team, particularly on the city side, is working with Thomas Jefferson Soil and Water Concentration District to seek USDA NRCS watershed program funding for planning and implementing additional restoration in the watershed above the park. That might help do a number of things, including reduce flooding damages and improving water quality.
I can start on that one. Uh, the city does work closely with the Soil and Water Conservation District on a number of issues. Uh, we have not in the past accessed that particular grant program that is mentioned, but it's one that we can look into. And I'll just say that the city and through the Water Resources Program, we're always looking at projects around the city, which all are in the Rivanna watershed, of course, that can have a beneficial impact on water quality, drainage, and flooding concerns, being the other big prong of the capital projects that we tackle. But as of this time, nothing specifically in that realm that is in the works for that particular program. But thanks for bringing it up, and it's one that I'll definitely look into. I don't know if anybody else has anything to add to that.
This is Chris. The purchase of the Zero High Street property and the removal of the probability of the apartment complex that was going to go in there is one big step. We kind of avoided that from being an issue. We have yet to be told that it's for parks to use. I think the city management bought it and kind of held it for a little bit. I saw some things recently where we will probably do some planning for that property soon. It's a very large piece of land. it certainly offers opportunities for tree plantings, maybe some of the types of engineered wetlands and biofilter type facilities like we did at Azalea Park, and we've been doing at a number of parks. But that's on the horizon, and we would certainly take that into account when that property gets planned. And yes, me and Dan and the Water Conservation District, the Nature Conservancy, and a number of places have been utilizing city properties all around the city where we can to do things that improve water quality, water quantity, flooding, like the Meadow Creek restoration and the one at the north end of McIntyre Park and Azalea Park. Those are all good examples. And we continue to look for further opportunities to use city properties to deal with stormwater. The good thing is a lot of those are along creeks at the downhill end, the receiving end of a lot of that stuff that comes off of the city above. So nothing in specific I can think of right in that area, but any funding's great, and anywhere we can do stuff, we really try to do that.
And one last question. Someone asks, please let us know how the public can volunteer for manual labor to help with the labor costs.
I'll take that one. We were actually just discussing this in our meeting last week, especially in terms of the landscape, the plant installation and watering. And the project is going to be constructed by contractors, so there's not a lot we can do with the planting side of things, but there may be a role for helping with some watering. And there's definitely a role for the community to help with a companion project that we're working on in the park to tackle invasive plants. So there's a project called the Rivanna Forest Restoration Partnership that RCA is helping lead up, but it's a huge community effort. We have regular work days in the park on Saturdays once a month. You can also find that information on our website. And we are actively working to reduce the invasive plants in the natural forested parcels that are kind of adjoining the restoration area, not only to improve those forest areas, but also to keep the invasives from spreading into the restored areas and all of the new plants. So we would love help with that project. So you can find all the information on our website. Again, it's rivannariver.org.
And you can also work with, if you've heard of Blue Ridge Prism, and some other groups like Relief, and I think there's a Charlottesville local program similar to Blue Ridge Prism, where it's a nonprofit, and they can do things even on private properties to get trees planted in the upstream areas. So look into those if you're interested, because the city can't work on private properties, but these other groups are doing a really good job of getting trees planted in people's yards, places like that, and invasive removal. So if you're interested in that outside of this project, there's a lot of volunteer opportunities to do things across the whole city and county that are going to help this project succeed, by iterative reduction and those kinds of things in the upstream areas of the watershed.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that, Chris. Something I forgot to put into my presentation is that actually the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation grant we have for implementing this project, we actually included Relief Seaville in the project to plant trees in that drainage area of the outfall, so that those trees not only will help provide shade and climate benefits to the community, but also will help address stormwater that's entering the park and contributing to the erosion in the outfall. And they also are planting trees throughout the Woolen Mills community. I think they already planted 140 last year under the grant, and they're going to be doing even more this fall. So that, yeah, we're really excited to have them on board helping with that aspect of the issues going on in the park as well.
Wonderful. Well, I think that's it. That's it from the question side. Thank you, everyone. Thanks to all of our panelists. And thanks to everyone who came to learn about the project.